Imagine your phone buzzing in the dead of night. A text message from someone you casually dated, then another, then 50 more. The words twist from a simple, angry breakup into something deeply obsessive. Suddenly, they know exactly where you are. They know when you leave for work. They're watching your every move. You change your locks, you move across town, and you buy a brand new unlisted phone. But the very next day, it buzzes again. The stalker is already there. Welcome back to Channel 19 Mysteries. I'm your host, Midnight Rider. Tonight, we are delving into a case so twisted, so psychologically terrifying, it will make you want to disconnect from the digital world forever. It all began in the crisp autumn of 2012 in Omaha, Nebraska. What started as a completely ordinary, casual romance rapidly devolved into a waking nightmare of property destruction, arson, relentless cyber-stalking, and cold-blooded murder. But the most chilling detail of this entire sprawling investigation isn't just the sheer brutality of the crimes. It's the impossible, invisible phantom who orchestrated it all without ever leaving a physical trace. Before we unravel this dark web of fatal deception, please take a moment to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts as this twisted timeline unfolds. It truly helps us bring more of these bizarre mysteries to the surface. So turn off your lights, double check your locks, and silence your cell phones. Now, let's get into tonight's story. A dating nightmare. In the autumn of 2012, Dave Kroupa was living a relatively uncomplicated life in Omaha, Nebraska. Dave was a hardworking guy, a manager at a local transmission repair shop. His days were filled with the heavy scent of motor oil, the deafening screech of impact wrenches, and the endless parade of broken down vehicles needing his expertise. He liked his job, he liked his independence, and having recently gotten out of a long-term, committed relationship, he was enjoying the freedom of being single. He was casually dating, making it explicitly clear to anyone he saw that he was not looking to settle down or start a new family anytime soon. One of the women he was seeing casually was a woman named Shanna Golyar, though everyone called her Liz. Liz was a mother of two who worked as a cleaning supervisor. She and Dave had met online, went on a few dates, and had a mutual understanding that their relationship was nothing serious. They saw each other occasionally, but Dave continued to live his life entirely on his own terms. Then, on a crisp afternoon in late October 2012, a woman walked through the glass doors of Dave's auto repair shop, and the entire trajectory of his life shifted. Her name was Cari Farver. She was a brilliant, highly motivated single mother. Cari worked as a computer programmer and IT specialist. She was independent, fierce, and fiercely dedicated to her teenage son, Max. Cari had brought her vehicle into the shop for some routine maintenance, and from the moment she walked up to the counter, Dave was captivated. They struck up a conversation about cars, life, and everything in between. The chemistry was instant and undeniable. When her car was finished, Dave, stepping out of his usual comfort zone, asked Cari if she would like to go out on a date. To his delight, she smiled and said yes. Their first few dates were fantastic. They laughed, they shared stories, and Dave felt a genuine connection that he hadn't felt in a long time. However, keeping to his personal rules, Dave sat Cari down early on and was completely honest with her. He told her he was not looking for a serious live-in relationship. He just wanted to take things slow and have fun. Cari, who had her own demanding career and a son to raise, agreed completely. She liked her independence just as much as Dave liked his. They were on the exact same page, or so Dave thought. The evening of November 12th, 2012, was a Monday. Cari came over to Dave's apartment in Omaha to spend the night. They had a wonderful evening together, completely unaware that it would be the last normal night either of them would ever experience. The following morning, Tuesday, November 13th, 2012, Dave woke up early. He had to open the transmission shop. Cari was also awake, getting ready for her own busy day. She had a massive, career-defining project launching at her IT job that morning, and she was anxious but excited to get to the office. Before Dave left the apartment, he gave Cari a kiss goodbye and told her he would see her later. As Dave walked out of his apartment door and into the hallway of his building, he was surprised to see Liz Golyar walking toward him. Liz explained that she had just stopped by to pick up some personal items she had left at his place a few weeks prior. Dave, feeling slightly awkward about the timing, asked Liz to wait in the hallway for a moment. He stepped back into his apartment, quickly introduced Cari and Liz as they briefly crossed paths in the doorway, grabbed Liz's things, handed them to her, and then headed off to work. It was a 10-second interaction, a completely mundane, slightly awkward collision of Dave's casual dating life. He thought absolutely nothing of it. As he drove to the auto shop, his mind focused on the day's mechanical tasks. But a few hours later, the nightmare began. Around mid-morning on November 13th, 2012, Dave was standing behind the counter at the shop when his cell phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw a text message from Cari. Dave smiled, expecting a sweet message about their date the night before. But when he opened the text, his smile vanished. The message read, "We need to move in together right now. I want to move into your apartment today." Dave stared at the screen, utterly bewildered. This was entirely contradictory to everything they had discussed. They had only been dating for 2 weeks. He quickly typed back a response, trying to keep the tone light but firm, reminding her of their agreement that they were keeping things casual. Seconds later, his phone buzzed again. It was Cari. "Fine. I hate you. I am ruining your life. I am never seeing you again." Dave was shocked. He tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. He texted her, asking what was wrong, asking if she was joking. The only responses he received were a barrage of increasingly angry, venomous text messages, entirely devoid of the warmth and intelligence he had come to know her for. By the end of the afternoon, Cari had sent him dozens of messages, effectively breaking up with him in the most hostile, aggressive manner imaginable. Dave, though deeply confused and slightly hurt, figured he had just dodged a massive bullet. He assumed Cari had a hidden, volatile side and decided it was best to just let it go. He went home to his apartment, expecting to never hear from her again. But Cari Farver was not done. In fact, she was just getting started. Over the next few days, the text messages from Cari did not stop. They multiplied. Dave's phone began buzzing incessantly, at all hours of the day and night. She sent hundreds of messages. Then, she started sending emails. The messages shifted from angry breakup texts to outright stalking. "I am watching you. I see you leaving for work. I know you are inside your apartment right now." Dave started looking over his shoulder every time he walked to his car. He began checking the locks on his doors 3 times before going to sleep. Meanwhile, across town, Cari's family was experiencing a completely different kind of terror. Cari had never shown up to work on the morning of November 13th, 2012. She had completely missed the massive IT project launch she had been working on for months. This was entirely out of character for the responsible, dedicated professional. Her mother, Nancy Rainey, was frantic. She immediately contacted the local police and filed a missing persons report. Nancy knew her daughter would never just vanish, and more importantly, she would never, ever abandon her teenage son, Max. But just as the police began to organize a search, Nancy's phone buzzed. It was a text message from Cari. The message stated that Cari had decided to quit her job, abandon her life in Omaha, and move to Kansas for a new opportunity. She said she would arrange to have someone pick up her belongings and that she would contact them when she was settled. Nancy was heartbroken and incredibly confused. It made no logical sense. But because the police saw that the missing person was actively communicating with her family via text message, and because Cari was an adult with the legal right to walk away from her life, the authorities had to classify it as a voluntary disappearance. The active search was called off. Cari Farver was officially a ghost, but a ghost with an unlimited data plan. As the weeks turned into months, the years shifted from 2012 to 2013. Dave Kroupa's life had become an inescapable, waking nightmare. The harassment from Cari escalated from digital threats to physical vandalism. Dave would walk out of his apartment building to find his car keyed. He would find a window smashed. And immediately after discovering the damage, his phone would buzz with a text from Cari mocking him, proving that she was the one who had done it. Dave was losing his mind. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't focus at work. He felt like he was being hunted by an invisible predator. He went to the Omaha police repeatedly, showing them the thousands of text messages and the damage to his property. But the police were frustrated. Cari Farver was an IT genius. She was using proxy servers, spoofing apps, and sophisticated routing software to completely mask her digital footprint. Every time the police tried to trace the IP address of the emails or texts, it bounced to an anonymous server in another country. They couldn't find her to arrest her. Then, the Phantom expanded her target list. Liz Golyar, the woman Dave had been casually dating before Cari, suddenly began receiving horrific text messages from Cari as well. The Phantom knew Liz's phone number, knew where she lived, and knew her schedule. Cari began threatening Liz, telling her to stay away from Dave. Soon, Liz's property was being vandalized too. Her car was scratched. Someone spray-painted threats on the side of her garage. Liz would call Dave, crying hysterically, terrified for her life and the lives of her 2 young children. Dave felt an overwhelming sense of guilt. He felt responsible for bringing this deranged, violent stalker into Liz's life. The shared trauma of being hunted by Cari pushed Dave and Liz closer together. They began relying on each other for emotional support, bonding over their mutual terror. Dave tried everything to escape. He moved to an entirely new, unlisted apartment in a different part of the city. He changed his phone number, he changed his email addresses, he bought a firearm and learned how to use it, sleeping with it on the nightstand right next to his head. But it didn't matter. Within 48 hours of moving into his secret new apartment, his brand new, unlisted cell phone buzzed. "I like your new place, Dave, but your curtains are ugly." Cari was invincible. She was omniscient. She was a digital god, torturing them purely for her own amusement. In August of 2013, the stalking escalated from property damage to devastating, life-altering violence. Liz Golyar had gone out for the evening, leaving her home in Council Bluffs, Iowa. While she was gone, neighbors reported seeing smoke billowing from the roof of her house. By the time the fire department arrived, the structure was entirely engulfed in flames. The firefighters battled the inferno, but the house was a total loss. Everything Liz owned was reduced to ashes. But the true tragedy was discovered when the smoke finally cleared. Inside the charred remains of the home, firefighters found the bodies of Liz's beloved dogs, a cat, and a pet snake. They had all perished in the fire. Liz was absolutely, utterly destroyed. She wept in Dave's arms, screaming that Cari Farver had done this. The fire marshals investigated the scene and determined that it was unequivocally arson. The fire had been intentionally set. The police intensified their search for Cari, treating her not just as a stalker, but as a highly dangerous arsonist, capable of incredible cruelty. Yet, despite a massive manhunt and multiple warrants, Cari remained entirely invisible. The terror dragged on through the entirety of 2014 and deep into 2015. Dave and Liz lived in a perpetual state of hyper-vigilance, their nervous systems completely shattered by the relentless psychological warfare. Dave had received nearly 50,000 text messages and 15,000 emails from Cari over the span of 3 years. Then, in December of 2015, the invisible stalker finally pulled the trigger. Liz was spending the afternoon at a local park in Council Bluffs, Iowa, trying to clear her head. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out. Liz screamed and collapsed to the ground, a bullet having torn through her leg. Emergency services rushed her to the hospital. As the police interviewed her in the emergency room, Liz, trembling and pale, told them exactly what happened. She said she had been walking through the park when a woman stepped out from behind a line of trees. She said the woman raised a handgun, aimed it directly at her, and fired. The woman, Liz stated with absolute certainty, was Cari Farver. The shooting of Liz Golyar finally pushed the case to the absolute breaking point. The Pottawatomie County Sheriff's Office in Iowa realized that this was no longer just a missing persons case or a cyber-stalking case. They were dealing with an attempted homicide. In the spring of 2015, Detective Ryan Avis and Detective Jim Doty decided to take a completely fresh look at the entire sprawling nightmare. They pulled the massive files, which contained thousands of pages of police reports, fire marshal's findings, and endless logs of text messages. As the 2 seasoned detectives sat in their cramped office, pinning photos and timelines to a corkboard, they noticed something profoundly disturbing. Something that simply did not add up. For 3 entire years, Cari Farver had supposedly been living off the grid, executing highly coordinated attacks, burning down houses, and shooting people. Yet, in all that time, Cari had not accessed her bank account a single time. She had not used a single credit card. Her social security number had not been used to rent an apartment, buy a car, or secure a job. She had not refilled any of her prescription medications. She had completely missed her son's high school graduation, a milestone everyone who knew her said she would never, ever miss. If Cari was alive and stalking Dave and Liz, how was she financing this criminal enterprise? How was she eating? Where was she sleeping? Detectives Avis and Doty hypothesized a terrifying alternative. What if Cari Farver wasn't the stalker? What if Cari Farver had been dead since November 13th, 2012? But if Cari was dead, who on earth had been sending 50,000 text messages pretending to be her? The detectives knew that the only way to catch the ghost was to dismantle the machine. They reached out to Anthony Cava, a brilliant IT forensics investigator who worked for the county. Cava was a digital bloodhound, a man who could find the microscopic digital fingerprints left behind in the vast ocean of the internet. Avis and Doty handed Cava hard drives containing every single email, text message, and digital communication sent by Cari over the last 3 years. Cava locked himself in his lab and went to work. He wrote custom algorithms to sift through the mountains of data. He knew that even if the sender was using spoofing apps and proxy servers to hide their location, every piece of digital information has to eventually anchor to a physical piece of hardware. It has to connect to a router. For weeks, Cava peeled back the layers of digital encryption, reverse engineering the Phantom's network. And finally, late one night, he hit the jackpot. He managed to crack the proxy shield on a cluster of the threatening emails. He traced the IP addresses back to their physical origins. Cava stared at his monitor, his blood running cold. The IP addresses did not originate from Kansas or from some remote hacker hideout. The emails pretending to be Cari Farver had been sent from an IP address registered to Dave Kroupa's house. Other emails had been sent from an IP address registered to Liz Golyar's house. And still, others had been sent from the secure Wi-Fi network of the Department of Corrections, the exact building where Liz Golyar worked. The detectives were stunned. The calls were literally coming from inside the house. But Dave couldn't be the stalker. He had been sitting in the police station filing reports while texts from Cari arrived on his phone in real time. That left only one impossible, horrifying conclusion. The victim was the predator. Armed with Cava's undeniable digital forensics, detectives Avis and Doty quietly shifted the entire focus of their investigation onto Shanna Liz Golyar. They secured a massive, comprehensive search warrant for Liz's home, her vehicle, and every single electronic device she owned. When they executed the warrant, they confiscated old cell phones, broken tablets, and discarded digital cameras. Anthony Cava immediately went to work, extracting data from the devices. Deep inside the memory of one of Liz's old, discarded tablets, Cava found a hidden, deleted folder. Using specialized forensic recovery software, he resurrected the deleted files. Inside the folder was a photograph. It was a close-up image of a human foot resting on a piece of dark fabric. On the top of the foot was a very distinct, unique tattoo of a Chinese symbol. The detectives pulled the missing persons file for Cari Farver. They checked her physical descriptors. Cari had a tattoo of a Chinese symbol on her foot, an exact match to the one in the photograph. But as Cava continued to dig through the deleted cache, he found more photos. And these photos provided the absolute, irrefutable proof of murder. There were several photographs showing the dead body of Cari Farver. She was slumped over in the passenger seat of her own vehicle, covered in blood, having clearly been violently murdered. The digital metadata attached to those horrifying photographs showed exactly when and where they were taken. They were taken on the morning of November 13th, 2012, and they were taken by the camera inside Liz Golyar's tablet. On December 22nd, 2016, detectives Ryan Avis and Jim Doty drove to Liz Golyar's home and placed her under arrest for the first-degree murder of Cari Farver. The trial of Liz Golyar revealed a depth of psychopathy and digital manipulation that left the jury completely stunned. Here's what happened. On the morning of November 13th, 2012, Liz Golyar did not just accidentally bump into Dave and Cari in the hallway of the apartment building. Liz had been obsessively stalking Dave. When she saw him with a beautiful, successful woman like Cari, Liz's jealousy mutated into a murderous rage. After Dave left for work, Liz waited in the parking lot. When Cari walked out to her car to head to her big IT presentation, Liz intercepted her. Using a knife she had brought with her, Liz brutally attacked Cari inside her own vehicle, stabbing her to death. Liz then took photographs of her victim to keep as trophies. She meticulously cleaned the scene, disposed of Cari's body in a location that, to this day, has never been found, and abandoned Cari's car in a distant parking lot. But Liz knew that if Cari simply vanished, the police would investigate, and they might eventually trace it back to the jealous ex-girlfriend. So Liz stole Cari's cell phone. Using Cari's phone, Liz sent the aggressive breakup texts to Dave, successfully alienating him from the victim. She sent texts to Cari's mother, convincing her that Cari had moved away, effectively shutting down the police search before it even began. And then, Liz Golyar orchestrated a 3-year-long masterpiece of psychological terror. She downloaded scheduling apps to send texts on a delay, allowing her to sit next to Dave while his phone blew up with threats from the stalker. She keyed Dave's car, and she keyed her own car to make herself look like a victim. She wanted Dave all to herself, and she knew the best way to keep him close was to manufacture a shared trauma. She became his confidant, his shoulder to cry on, all while secretly being the monster hunting him in the dark. The most terrifying aspect of her deception was her absolute ruthlessness. To maintain the illusion that Cari was a dangerous lunatic, Liz intentionally set fire to her own home. She stood outside and watched as the house burned to the ground, willingly sacrificing the lives of her own beloved pets just to sell the lie. And when she felt the police were losing interest, she went to a park, pulled out a handgun, and shot herself in her own leg, blaming it on a woman she had murdered 3 years prior. Liz Golyar was a master manipulator who utilized modern technology to commit a horrific murder, steal a woman's identity, and construct a flawless, terrifying reality that fooled everyone. Everyone, that is, except for a couple of determined detectives and an IT expert who proved that in the digital age, a ghost always leaves a footprint. Shanna Liz Golyar was found guilty of first-degree murder and arson. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring she will never have access to a cell phone or a victim ever again. The tragic story of Cari Farver and the unimaginable deception of Liz Golyar is a chilling reminder of how the digital world can be weaponized against us. A ghost may always leave a digital footprint, but the devastation left behind on the lives of Dave Kroupa and Cari's loved ones is incredibly real. Thank you for joining me down this dark path tonight here on Channel 19 Mysteries. I'm your host, Midnight Rider. If this case sent a shiver down your spine, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment below with your thoughts on the investigation, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss our next deep dive. Do you have your own strange stories, unexplained events, or creepy encounters? I want to hear them. Send your experiences over to mycreepyencounter@gmail.com, and they might just be featured in an upcoming episode. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your instincts, and stay safe out there.